Hey, afternoon everyone. Just gonna make a quick video here talking about increased hay consumption right now because it's so cold. So hang on, I gotta put my glove back on here. This is gonna be a very quick video and hopefully the wind's not too bad. It's about negative 15 degrees right now. That's Fahrenheit. Sorry. Alright. Last night we got to about negative 20 and they're talking if this wind doesn't die down, it's gonna be about negative 20 again, and that's wind chill. So actual temperature right now is negative 7 degrees Fahrenheit, 7 below zero, and the wind has moved it to about negative 15. So the last few days I've been feeding an increased amount of hay, and anyone who watched my how much hay do cattle need for winter video, that was probably like 3 weeks ago, might have caught in there that there actually is a little formula, little rule of thumb that you can use to figure out how much more feed your animals are going to need when it gets really cold. So there's two metrics there, or the lower critical temperature for your animals, which is basically the temperature that it gets to where your animals will have to start burning body reserves. So now they're using their fat and extra energy just to stay warm. Everything they're eating will be to maintain and gain. You get below that lower critical temperature, and now they're actually going to be losing body condition. So the two metrics are 32 degrees Fahrenheit and 18 degrees Fahrenheit. Your 18 degree Fahrenheit is for a day like today. Thick, heavy winter hair coat, which we're, first couple weeks of January here, so they have their winter hair coats on, and dry. Obviously no snow, no ice, no precip for the last couple days. So this is 18 degrees Fahrenheit. That's their lower critical temperature. You jump to that 32 degree Fahrenheit when, maybe it's early winter and their full winter hair coat is not in yet, or you've got sleet, snow, ice, rain, whatever it is that's causing the animals to be wet. I did a video last week about, feeding during a winter storm. That definitely would have been a 32 degree lower critical temperature, because even though the cows were insulated and they were warm, their hair coats were wet, so they were burning a little bit more energy just to maintain. So how do you decide how much more hay you need to feed? Well, it's kind of a simple math equation. Going off of the 18 degrees lower critical temperature, and let's use last night's temps, yesterday's temps of negative 20. That's with the wind chill. That's not actual temp, that's with the wind chill. Negative 20. That's basically an extra 38 degrees is how you look at it. So 18 degrees to negative 20 is 38. For every degree from that deviation of 18 degrees Fahrenheit, you add 1% to their feed. So that equals 38% more, which equals 138% of their daily amount needed. So for this herd right now, what I had calculated out at the beginning of the winter was about 108 pounds of hay a day. They need 108 pounds of hay a day. Take 138% of that. 138% of 108 is close to 150. So that's 150 pounds of hay that they're gonna need. That's easy for me because I feed small square bales, and right now we are feeding out our first cutting 50-pound square bales. So that essentially just means, 3 small squares at 50 pounds each. So they got a small square this morning, and I threw out 2 small squares for the afternoon feeding, and you can see they're a little pushy and shovey with each other. When I feed the hay, just like anything in the animal kingdom, there's a pecking order, there's a herd order, and we have a herd boss. And so when I feed multiple bales like this, even when I feed one bale, I try and spread them out kind of split them apart a little bit. So the animals on the lower end of that pecking order can eat problem free, which, you know, is these two right here. So when they get pushed away from this pile, which I'm sure they will here in a little bit, they'll just wander over to the other pile, which is far enough away that they can start eating. And that way they're not getting run off of the hay. So now we also have that 30% protein tub out, and that's been out since really the start of feeding hay, to make sure they get some extra protein and energy. And then because again, it has been so cold the last couple nights, and today and tonight and tomorrow is going to be really cold as well. I actually have been feeding some range cubes. So I don't really follow any real recommendation like they have on the bag of those range cubes, but it's just a Purina range cube, and I just have a big scooper and I, you know, put it out once a day for them. And that just adds some extra protein and some extra energy to help. I mentioned we're feeding our first cutting hay right now. This stuff is really stemmy. We don't make our own hay out here. Some of you know that. I buy in everything, and I had to use a new hay producer this year. And, you know, I bought his first cutting stuff because it was cheap, he was close, and he makes heavy, tight bales. So 50, 55 pound bales is what I get from this guy. They're nice and full, but this stuff is pretty stemmy. You know, it's first cutting. I mean, this guy must have dropped his mower all the way down to ground level, because there's some stemmy, stocky stuff in here as well, and nice long cuts, like he took the whole, you know, 12 to 14 inches of growth off the plant. But we're feeding this out now because we're going to be getting close to our third trimester. This dun dexter right in front of me right here, she's going to be calving in early April, as well as this second calf heifer here who's nursing this black calf in front of her. So both of these girls, this will be her second calf. That dun dexter over there, that'll be her first calf. But both of these girls are scheduled to calve in the first couple weeks of April. So we're going to be hitting that 90-day, or excuse me, that third trimester. So yeah, 90 days, 30, 60, 90. The last 3 months of their 9-month gestation, that's when you really want to ramp up the feed and the quality of feed. So we're saving all our good hay here coming up for a few weeks. So I'm trying to get through as much of this stemmy stuff as I can. The other thing we're doing is, you can kind of see we're feeding, this is an area that needed some hay feeding this winter, just because it was a very, very poor to do area of the pasture. And you can actually see all this standing dead crap all around right here. This is just a lot of Queen Anne's lace and a lot of plantain, you know, just stuff that, there wasn't a whole lot of grass in this area. So I'm going to really hammer this hard this winter, this area, with feeding hay. But it's also doing us good because the wind's coming out of the northwest at a pretty good clip. And so we've got this tree line here. We're in a dip a little bit, you know, we're kind of on the backside of a ridge. And then there's a big tree line over there that's kind of stopping some of the wind. So I figure I wasn't going to get to this yet. I'm kind of slowly trying to move my way across the pasture to here, but I figured get them out of the wind. That'll just help them stay even warmer. And then the last thing I'm going to do today is put out another bedding bale. So we're going to head down to that lean-to in the back pasture. I'm going to throw out another wheat straw bale just to help keep that nice fluffy material for them to lay on and stay out of the wind tonight. You know, if you can keep them dry and clean, that'll help that hair coat do its job. So if they go back in that shed that they've been in the last 2 days and 2 nights since they've gotten a new fresh bale, I'm betting I'm going to find a good amount of manure and urine soaked spots that they're just going to lay down on, and it's going to basically create little pocket marks all over their winter hair coat when they lay down on that manure. That's just going to kind of leach out some of that warmth for them as well. So throw out another straw bale, make that clean and fluffy, and get them through another cold night. Like I said, tomorrow's going to be pretty bad, so I'm going to increase the feed tomorrow as well. I suppose let's talk real quick on that too, increasing feed, because some of you, obviously, you're not running a small herd and you're not running smaller animals. You know, you could be running a large herd of full-size cattle. And so if you take in that 138% of what you normally feed your herd, you know, could end up being an insane amount of hay. That might not be feasible. That's feeding a lot of hay per day. Well, how do you get around that? One way is to help supplement or to supplement to help them. So, you know, any sort of energy source, any sort of extra protein source you can. If you're into feeding grains or, you know, byproducts of any type, that's something you can do. We don't do any of that here, but obviously, like I said, we'll throw out some range cubes, so that helps. But the other thing that you do is you just increase their feed a little bit, you know, the days or the weeks before a real cold snap. So this cold snap kind of came out of nowhere, but had I known a week ago that it was going to be getting this cold for a few days, I would have ramped up their feed, not 138% of their feed, but, you know, maybe 110%, which would really only be another quarter of a bale every time they get food. Kind of ramp that up for the week and a half leading up to this real cold snap. And then I wouldn't have to feed an extra 50 pounds of hay if I didn't have enough hay to get me through the winter and I didn't want to burn another bale. And then they could have used their own reserves to kind of get through this cold snap and not really lose any weight. So just one tactic you can do if you've got a large herd or you don't have extra hay to feed out. What do you think, bud? You don't really like this hay, do you? They're kind of picking through this stuff, but I think once I leave the pasture and they see they're not getting anything else, then they're really going to go after it. They get picky when I'm around, thinking that I'm going to bring out something better, because sometimes I'll feed one crappy bale and one good bale just to make them happy. But the minute they see me leave, then they'll go to town on that hay because they know they're not getting anything else and they're hungry. So yeah, really easy, guys. Just add a % of feed for every degree below that lower critical temperature, and then add that to your total daily feed. There's two other things you can do that are actually relatively simple. One would just be allowing your animals to get out of the wind. You know, that negative 20 degrees is because of the wind chill that immediately can go out the window when they are out of the wind. Anything you could do to minimize that wind blasting your animals is just going to mean they're staying warmer, and that's requiring less feed. So because this herd has a lean-to that they spend some time in, did I need to do the full 138% increase in feed today? No, probably not, because after they eat here, they're going to go get a drink of water. They're going to mess around with their minerals and their protein for a little bit, and then more than likely they're going to end up right back in that shed staying out of the wind. So, you know, I'm not feeding them in a barn, and they're not living in a barn, so they are still going to be outside exposed to the elements, but not like a herd would be in an area that has zero wind protection, thus needing that full 138%. And then the other thing you can do is just time that feeding. So it's about 3 o'clock now, which is about a half hour earlier than we normally do for the afternoon feeding. But that's because in about 12 hours, 2, 3, and 4 o'clock in the morning, tomorrow morning, that's gonna be our coldest temperatures. And ruminating animals peak, that rumination, that digestion, the internal heat coming from that digestion happens about 12 hours after their initial ingestion of their feed, their dry matter. So anywhere from 8 to 12 hours, but it really peaks at 12 hours. So we're, like I said, it's 3 o'clock now, so we're looking at 3 o'clock tomorrow morning that they're really going to be putting off a lot of internal heat, hitting that 12-hour digestion window. And that's also when it's going to be the coldest tomorrow. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, talk to you guys later. Bye.